Well, why don't we just kind of get started here? And I'm sure people will be joining as they come in. Let me introduce our speaker for today. Thank you, everybody, for showing up and attending our meeting. Pleased to have a special guest speaker for today's group meeting. It's Dr. Luisa Cannon. Dr. Cannon has been, of course, a long-standing member of the ACT community, the ACBS community, and is currently the co-chair of the program committee of the ACBS, and is here to speak to us about the upcoming 2022 ACBS World Conference, and maybe some of the things that might help us craft our submissions and the things that they're looking for. So I'm really excited to hear this presentation today. And of course, hopefully we'll have some time for questions and answers as well. Is that all right, Luisa?
Yes, of course. And well, I want to say, Jacob, thank you for for this. And I think it's going to be important we have this conversation more than a presentation. I think I want us to have a conversation about what your experience has been, if you have made submissions in the past, and what are areas of that are like difficult, so I can make it as like functional as possible for you all. I also want to say that well, I joined the conference strategy committee as co-chair, and this is something new. I have been doing reviews previous years, but only on this role until now. So I am happy, to share, what kind of, I guess, changes or directions we're taking. Something that I also want to say is that, well, Dr. Evelyn Gould and I are both co-chairs, and so we are going to be, yes, well, I wouldn't say that we are going to make the final decisions to everything. There's other members and executive director who make the final decisions. So I do want to make sure that we are going to try to push things in different directions, and we're going to do our best. But we are not the ones who ultimately make all the decisions. So I wanted to let you know of that. So why don't we start with like maybe like basic questions you have. I don't know if it is useful we go through the submission, like the submission itself, like if we go through that, would that be helpful? Yes, okay. Okay, cool. So let me see. I'm gonna share my screen. And we just go through it and you tell me, okay, well, this area is kind of hard. We don't know what to write, it's difficult. And I will also make notes so I can bring this to the conference committee and try to make as many adjustments as possible to make this smoother, okay? Okay, let's see. So I'm gonna put you here. Can you see my screen? Yes, okay, cool. All right. So let me see. Okay, so as we start this, let me see. So, okay, so for example, this is something important that if you have questions like or concerns about content and these kind of things, Manuela O'Connell and Emily Santos are the people to go to in order to ask questions about that. Well, we know that the deadline, this is for the pre-workshops, right? And I think soon it's going to be open for the rest of the things. So anyway, so over here, we are going to click the presentation format. I think in the past, or not in the past, but I think over here, you can record your preference of conference. If you didn't do it, maybe you can still do it. But anyway, so here, either if you consider only attending virtually, then either you mark there, or if you consider going to the physical conference, or virtual, or only in-person consideration, then you mark in there. Because of the pandemic, I think we all have gotten pretty good at Zoom, right? But I also think that we know to what extent we might need help when it comes to managing a group, whether it's in a workshop or in a workshop within the conference or the pre-conference workshops. Is kind of a different thing. So I will suggest here that if you are really a pro with Zoom, then you're good to go. But if you might have some difficulties using like the features of sharing like breakout rooms and that kind of thing, then probably you should be marking this option, okay? So when we go to the title is super important, and the abstract too. And I'll tell you this, when I was doing reviews the previous years, I don't remember reading stuff that were very interesting, but they were very incomplete. So as I read them, I thought, why is this important? Like, I assume it is important because of my learning history, right? But I am not the only reader and not the only person considering it. So we should make sure that our title really, first of all, reflects what we are talking about, okay? I know this sounds basic, but it happens. And even it happens to me when I am writing something, I see it and I'm like, okay, that looks fine. But then I send it to someone and then, okay, well, this is not connecting, or you're missing this. So I will strongly suggest that you always have other people check. And I know that, Jacob, you have this group for writing, right?
Correct. That's the function of this group. Starting maybe next month, we're going to be doing that where people can come in and say, hey, can you take a look at our title? Can you take a look at the abstract? Read it over, see does it make sense to you?
Okay, that is so awesome. Like, I am so glad you're doing that. It's necessary. We all need somebody else to look over the stuff because we might not just see it. So anyway, so again, title needs to be very coherent with what the presentation is going to be. So if we are mentioning something that is practical in our title, then we should make sure that we are talking about how to use or to implement whatever we're talking about in a particular scenario, right? As practice. So this. Okay, so questions so far? No? Okay. Well, you let me know. Sometimes
I have a question.
Yes, Jennifer, go ahead.
So does it need to be like catchy, or I mean, I know that it definitely needs to speak to what exactly it is that, that you're trying to do, but does it need to be like eye-catching or catchy?
That's a great question. And I'll tell you something. I struggle myself with writing catchy titles because English is not my first language. And so I just write very plain, like, this is what you get. This is what it is, right? So I don't think it has to be catchy. I mean, if it is catchy, great. That's awesome. But if it is not, don't worry about it. But do make sure that your title is including the elements of the presentation that make it different or that make it salient, right? So for instance, we might be talking about a protocol for depression in teenagers, for instance, right? But if there's a lot in the literature about that, but there is not so much the running this type of protocols with adolescents, for instance, in Argentina or in Brazil or in Korea, then we should make it salient as, okay, this is the population we are addressing this to, okay? So those elements that you think, okay, this is novel, right? Or this is not very, it hasn't been very well studied, then make sure that includes in the title, okay? Was that helpful, Jennifer? Okay, okay, good. So here the target audience. Well, I guess this is kind of like a hard thing. We all think that because we are all members of ACBS, we have been in contact somewhat to this, but it is also what you are going to offer. So if you think this is just a basic introductory thing, you are gonna maybe simplify something for the community, for members of the community who are new to contextual behavior science, then probably you should check beginner, right? And again, like with intermediate, right? Like I would not know, honestly, like what is, and this is probably something that we can bring up to the CSC, that beginner, intermediate, and advanced can be also clinical, right? And can be also applied, right? Or can be also research. So maybe these three are kind of confusing, right? Like now that I read it this way, it's coming across as, okay, which one should I mark? So maybe this one I will make a note and I can ask, because that can be like actually simplified. All right. Now, I also think that these kind of levels can be, defined as what we have seen the previous conference, what other things that people have done in previous conferences, right? So, for instance, if somebody is going to submit something on functional analysis, right? Well, functional analysis seems or sounds like more advanced, right? But maybe it is something that we should be doing, right? Or maybe something that the community will benefit from. So I still wouldn't put it advanced. I will put it like beginner, intermediate, because it's something that is foundational, that we need to be able to conduct assessment and assessment informed intervention, etc., etc. So that, and I don't know what else to say about this one, but is this helpful so far?
Yes, I have a question. I've noticed in the past people or submissions selecting all of the boxes, or like beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Do you want us to just pick one out of the beginner, intermediate, and advanced? Or are we saying like it's okay for beginners, it's okay for advanced people too, so I should select all of the boxes?
I wouldn't select all the boxes. Like, I'm thinking about this. If whatever I am going to deliver, let's try to always think, how did I always play this perspective taking game, because it's helpful, again, in knowing how this is going to land for the other person. But I think if what I'm going to deliver, what I will think is, how did I get here? How did I get to the place where I am going to be talking to people about this, right? What did I have to learn first? This, this is something like, it would be helpful for you to also know if it is advanced or intermediate or for beginners. Does it make sense? Okay.
I have a question. Yeah, Luisa. So I'm thinking about proposing the presentation that I made for your group in Southern Cal, speaking RFP, but obviously it's got to be condensed. I'm thinking about 1.5 hours, but that's a lot of condensing I need to do. So I was thinking, that it would really be targeted towards beginner, but then the intermediate folks would benefit, and I'm sure advanced people too. But it's hard for me to gauge because RFP is not a common thing that people jump into. So I was consulting with Lou, and Lou felt that it's kind of a beginner, but then I'm not sure about that, So I'm having, and then since you were there, I'm wondering if you have a sense, or even Jennifer, about what the target audience might, I'm thinking beginner, intermediate.
I think I agree with you. I agree with you. I think that again, it's not a topic that everybody knows of or like is very knowledgeable of, and beginners obviously will benefit from that, but also intermediate, because you are simplifying it,
Okay.
right? You're making it very simple, right? So
Yes,
even in
yes.
maybe people who are who know about RFT and they use it, but they are going to always benefit from hearing it in simple terms, right? Like that happened to me. I mean, I learned RFT, with the purple book, right? And then when I heard yours, I was like, wow, this is so cool, right? Like there are other things that click that didn't click before, right? So I will also put like beginner and intermediate.
Okay, intermediate. That makes sense. That makes sense. Because I think if I put in beginner, it might mislead people into thinking this is too easy. This is going to be easy, but it's not going to be totally easy either. So
Exactly.
intermediate sounds good. Thank you.
Well, I was going to say, Philip, I enjoyed your talk too. And I think, I mean, in addition to what Luisa's saying, and sometimes we should think about what audience do we want to reach the most? So, like for instance, people who like they hear the term RFT and they get like sick in their stomach. They don't want to, I mean, are you trying to get those type of people, like, or are you trying to get people that already know about RFT? So
that's a good question.
So that's another thing to think about.
Thank you for that. Would I be sinning if I put both beginner and intermediate? Would that be a horrible sin if I put beginner and, because actually listening to Jennifer, one of my goals was to make RFT really accessible to everybody, even if they don't know it at all. The idea that you can speak it. So I do like the idea of like getting people on board who don't have any knowledge of RFT and saying, hey, it's okay, just come. It doesn't have to be intimidating.
Exactly. So I think that is a great point that Jennifer is making, and again, if we are thinking of the target audience, right? Like I want people who have not had contact at all with this to benefit from this, then beginner. But again, we know it's complex, right? We know it's complex. Yes. And what I share with you, right? Like hearing this in simple, like in a very simple version, very digestible, then it was very beneficial to me, even though I knew about it before, right? So maybe, yeah, definitely those things to consider.
I'll keep praying about it. Thank you.
Of course, Philip. All right. So okay, so here, components. So what are the components of your talk, right? Are you going to be presenting a conceptual analysis, meaning are you going to bring something from, for instance, mainstream psychology, and you are going to present a conceptualization from the point of view of contextual behavior science, right? So that's what it means, right? That's you are going to bring something from outside. For instance, in the previous conference, there was, merging like psychodynamic and therapy and ACT, right? Or IFS and ACT. And so whatever we are going to bring, if we bring it, then how are we going to make it? How are we going to make it flow, with the assumptions of contextual behavior science? How from this lens we can understand psychodynamic theory, or like therapy, or any other, therapy, or any other thing that you want to bring up. Does it make sense? Okay. So anyway, so is your talk going to include a literature review, right? I mean, to some extent it does, because we are always going to be saying, well, this has been needed for a while. There have been people working on this for a while, for instance, blah, blah, blah. And and now we want to attempt this, or there were limitations with these studies, or with these, or there were things that were not mentioned in these papers, and now we want to bring these elements, right? So I believe that there is all, to an extent, there is literature review. Wouldn't you agree? So anyway, so that's original data. Well, if you conducted a study, and well, that's your data that you're going to present. Are you going to be including experiential exercises in your presentation? Is it going to be didactic? Are you going to be talking about cases, right? Are you going to involve or have the participants engage in role play? And this strategic planning, I am not really sure about what this means. And if I am thinking that if it is confusing to me, maybe it is confusing to you too, and to so many other people, right? So I'm gonna be, I will ask this question and the previous one. So then what I can do, Jacob, is I'll send you an email with answers for those two things, okay? Okay, so well, these are the topic areas. It is, I think this primary, the primary is much more easier than probably the secondary. I find the secondary much more tricky because sometimes many things overlap, right? So, but you tell me if you have any questions on these ones. So anything that has to do with education or academics, anything in the context of behavior analysis, behavioral or contextual neuroscience, clinical intervention development or outcomes, dissemination or global health strategies. There was a lot of this in the previous conference. I don't know if you remember, but a lot of things in regards to COVID and protocols online, and anyway, so that kind of thing. Environmental problems, evolutionary behavioral science. So these are like very, very specific, right? Like we could probably mix a few of these, but again, the primary is, you know what you're doing. So I think, or tell me if not, and then of course we'll talk about it, but do you find yourself having trouble finding what is your topic, your primary topic area?
I have a question that's kind of related to this.
Okay.
How much weight do you put on topics that are relevant to the current things that are going on, topically relevant? In other words, because there's a pandemic going on right now. Last year, lots of presentations on global health and public health and things like that. Are you looking for things that are topically relevant to what's going on in the world right now? Or do you have like a certain number of slots for those kinds of presentations, or what's the thinking there?
You know, the thinking there is we want, we would like to have presentations, hopefully in each of the areas, right? To make it like very well-rounded. Now, when you say, or when you ask about the relevance of, you know, topics that relate to what's happening in the world today, then of course, right? Like that would be lovely. And so definitely that's a yes. There are slots for, not for the topics in general, because, you know, when we receive the submissions, it is crazy. It can be the same topic, like, I don't know, 50 submissions about the same topic, right? And imagine how it is to decide among those 50 presentations or submissions that have to do with the same topic, right? So, and I want to talk to you about what do we consider when making that decision, okay? So maybe we can move, it's 1:26, maybe we can move a little faster through this so I can show you that.
Yeah, please do, please do.
Right? So yeah, so of course I think that's super important. Anyway, so any topic, and whatever is related to what's happening to the world today, of course. Okay, let me see. So, well, over here, you just put your name and then your degree tag, your email. Make sure the email that you put here is the same email that you are registered with or that you have your membership of ACBS with. Unfortunately, the system doesn't hold like two emails. Like if you become member of ACBS with one email and then right now you are doing this and you put another email, it's not going to recognize it. So just make sure that you are using exactly the same, okay? Well, your affiliation, where do you work, or is it your private practice, and your current position or title, the year in which your degree was completed, from what university, what was the major or your field of study. If you have any licenses or certifications, so then put it here with their corresponding numbers, in the country in which you live or where you practice. So over here, training relevant to topic, presenter or author. So there was a suggestion about, let me see. No, it's not this one, hold on. Okay, I think this is going to be included, but this is something like we have been thinking about, and it is something like you can select at least 3 of these, okay? So this will give you an idea of what to write, okay? So either you have published a particular book or article on a particular topic and you add the citation in APA format, or you have practiced a particular therapy that is consistent with contextual behavior science, with particular number of clients, and you have done that for how many years, you know, you have done it, or you have attended, you know, a number of trainings on a particular topic with a particular presenter, okay? Or you have attended the ACBS conferences before, or particular topics on, or particular topics in conferences. You have been given like a number of trainings on what topic. So something that is going to be related to what you are going to be talking about or attending to present on, okay? Let's see. And again, I think it's going to be like 3. I think it's going to be up to 3 that you can choose from this. I mean, if you have more, then that's great. But I think the minimum is going to be 3, okay? This one also, you have spoken on a panel, symposium. You are certified in a particular therapy or training method. You are a peer-reviewed trainer, or you have received grant funding from, you know, this place to study this particular topic, or your dissertation or your thesis was conducted on a, you know, relevant topic to what you are going to be wanting to present. Sounds good so far?
So that's for every presentation?
Yes. So I know. So if you are going to be talking about trauma, so you need to say in this box over here, then you are going to write at least 3 things out of those options that were given. Before, there wasn't this, so it was really hard to know, okay, what I'm supposed to put there, right? So this at least gives you something more specific to go with. And these are pretty, I really like these options, these prompts, because it doesn't have to be this. It can be this, or it can be this, right? Or you're receiving supervision from someone, you know, along like with the topic. So it doesn't have to, again, it can be any of those, but 3, okay? All right. So your bio, well, I I think, I am not sure that that the biography is going to be included on the submission for panels, symposia, and all that. But if it is, then, well, I think, well, you need to tell us a little bit about who you are and where you studied or what you have been interested. And it can be brief, but pretty much they like a general trajectory of your professional development, I think. I think again for, oh, somebody has a question. Does anyone has a question?
There's a question that came in the chat.
Oh.
I also have a question as well. Chat says from Francesca, I'm considering two different submissions. One of them is a group submission for a panel discussion on body image. And then a second submission is a research study on brief interventions for international students. And she's wondering, where would these two fit? So in this form that you're looking at here, there's not questions about, is this a workshop? Is this a panel discussion? Is this a symposium? Or is that on this form?
No, it's not on this form. Like we are using this one because this is what is open so far, right? For the pre-conference workshops. There's gonna be a similar form that is gonna be for the rest. So then when you select, like if you want to do a workshop or a symposium or a night session or those kind of things. So yes, so don't worry, like this is so far the form for that. It's not going to look too different. I think it's just going to have the option of whatever you want to submit. Okay.
Okay, so it's going to have that, and then Francesca would just select out of that list there, what topic does it best align with? Okay.
Yes.
I had another question,
right.
actually, regarding the bio,
sure.
the bio and the CV. The people who select the trainings, are they looking at submissions that are anonymized, like they don't have names attached, or do the conference people who are selecting submissions know who's submitting each thing?
You know, for what I remember, no, that's blind. I don't remember ever reading who is submitting what. I just remember having, you know, the list of, you know, whether it was symposiums or like symposia or panels or, you know, or whatever, but never the name. But again, as I said before, this bio part and the curriculum vitae, I think this is for the purposes of the workshop, the pre-conference workshop. I don't think that the form is gonna be very similar except for that. Or, you know what, I am not sure about symposia. Let's see, for discussants, the participants who want to discuss a series of papers, maybe that person is going to be required, very likely is going to be required a CV. But when we review, we don't see names. And if it is accepted, or if it is accepted, for instance, then at least the requirement is already there. You know what I mean? So but yeah, it is blind. All right. Over here is the information about other presenters, in case that you are putting together a symposium. Kind of like same information, and I think it's up to 3 or something. But again, this might not be exactly the same as for the other elements of the conference. Okay, so abstract. Super important, the abstract. The abstract needs to have, okay, well, I think these are important elements that need to have. Well, the topic you're wanting to talk about, why is important, or why is there a problem that you are attempting to address, right, by talking about this topic or by presenting. So it has to have that, because it doesn't have to be too long, then we just need to be brief, but make sure that you say why it's important, why is it relevant, that you identify, okay, well, again, like people have been looking at this, but they haven't worked with this population, or they have not really, there is no consensus in defining this particular phenomenon. And so that is why here I want to do it, right? And because and what could be the possible implications of doing that? How can you help, right? How, in what way could you be contributing to that problem you identify that in the first place made you do this work or this presentation? Is it clear? Am I making myself clear? Or
I have a question. So when you're writing the abstract, are you writing more for the prospective person who is holding the program of the conference and saying, which presentations do I want to attend? Or are you writing more towards the submission committee who's reading the abstract and saying, this is clear to me, I can see how this is relevant to the field or whatever, and I'm gonna make a choice based on this?
I want to make sure that I understood well your question. Can you say it again, please?
Yes. So, I think sometimes we when we think of these abstracts, we're trying to write them to attract as many people to the presentation as possible. People who might just be looking through the program and saying, "Oh, that one looks great." So we're kind of writing it as if like I'm trying to get people interested. Should we be writing it more towards y'all who are looking at the submissions and saying, this is the one I'm selecting?
Yeah, no, the first option, Jacob. So the same. So if the purpose of this is to share your contribution or whatever you want to present and get people interested in that, right? So write it for them, but it has to be clear, right? I know that, and it happens to me sometimes. If I read something and I just get the 2 keywords, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm doing this one, but that's me because sometimes I'm impulsive, and I love a topic and I don't even read about anything else. I just go to the training or I just go to this. But also there are going to be readers that are much more careful, right? And they're going to be, okay, well, this is really not telling me, why is this, because it's not telling me why I should come to this training, right? So, and what I think that can be helpful is, we know that people don't follow rules just to follow them, right? We need to explain or give some context as to why is this important, and how can this benefit you, right? So then, okay, well, that's talking to about my needs here. So then I'm gonna go to this training. So I am just, so I will just suggest that, you write it with the same purpose of attracting people to your presentation, and make sure that the abstract really encompasses the elements that you want to bring, whether it's novelty, whether it is a problem that continues to be in limbo, nobody's looking at, or you are extending something, or you are addressing a new, group of people, or, so does it make sense? I'm sorry, I don't always have the clarity, to talk.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay. All right. So anyway, so that's the abstract. And I can tell you, in the past, when I have reviewed abstracts, I read the title and I'm like, okay, this is exciting. And I go through the abstract and I find it missing a lot of information. Like I finish reading it with much more questions than anything else, right? So I wish the abstract again encompass like a little context, give the reader a little context. Again, why is important? What is the problem, right? Because then you're coming in to try to talk about it or to bring awareness. But if you want to bring awareness to something that I have no idea, right? Like, I don't know about all the topics. So if you give me a little, or again, the readers, maybe all the readers or the other, members of ACBS, when they read it, they might not know about the topic, but if you give enough context, they might become interested and say, this is cool. I haven't heard about this and this sounds really interesting, right? So anyway, so that. Okay, so the objectives, disregard this. This is for pre-conference workshop, right? But not for the rest of the submissions. So it's not going to be 10. I don't know how many they're gonna be, probably 3 or something. And I think this also relates, the objectives also relate to if the program is going to be giving continuing education units, right? For social workers or MFTs or psychologists or behavior analysts, etc. So over here, I think this is useful that you use, these verbs as examples of how you need to write, your objectives. Connect your objectives to your abstract. Connect this to your first intention. And then it's going to be fine. I did find in the past a lot of submissions where the objectives threw me away. I thought, okay, these objectives have not much to do with the abstract. And I am not talking about, I'm not talking about grammar or syntax, because I don't care about those things, because I don't write in English. I mean, I do, but I survive, right? So I do understand what it is to write in other languages or like in English. So it's not that, it is because I can make sense of that, right? And it is about being thorough, like really having enough information for you to be sold, on the idea of attending this training or symposium or panel, okay? So anyway, so these are, just good examples. So anyway, let's see. Well, there is normally not commercial support for your presentation, so you mark this as a no. Laptop, if you, well, I guess this one is an option, which I think is cool. Like if you are unable to present at the conference, if ACBS cannot provide you with a laptop, then they might accommodate, but I have no idea how many requests of these are presented. Like I don't, but maybe this is also, if you have more questions about this, maybe Melissa can help, with that. According to what you're gonna do, so for instance, Francesca was doing or talking about a panel or a group, like a did I read it right? Hold on.
Yes, it was a panel discussion, and Francesca has also another question in the chat as well.
Yes. So let me see. Okay, so let me go back very quickly to what Francesca mentioned before. So 2 submissions, panel discussion, and the other one is there's only mention of one.
The other one, it seems like it's just a research study.
So yeah, so then if you just need like a classroom type then of setting, like with where the presenter is going to be and then chairs, like in a classroom, then that's how you're gonna do it. If you're going to do a workshop and this workshop is going to involve people, pairing up and working together, then you select, you can select, for instance, round tables and chairs, right? Because people can probably just shift slightly and then get to work in pairs. So you decide according to what you are going to do. Let me see, I want to read the other question. Regarding the abstract, it is often very difficult to give many details in very limited characters, but I understand. Thank you, Francesca, for understanding. And it is hard, right? To make it like brief. So what do I think is the most important part for a better change of acceptance? So again, I think I will think that even if it is not written in the smoothest way, right? But if you talk about, if you devote a couple of sentences or like, yeah, a couple of sentences on some context, why you want to bring this up, why is it important? I think that is crucial. I hope I'm not mistaken, but really, like again, in the past, I always thought, why is this important? I want the person to tell me, why is this important? Like I know it, but other people might not connect with that. So we want to make sure there is like it is almost like when we're gonna treat a problem, right? How do we observe it? We identify it. That's a problem. If we were to fix it, what happens, right? Kind of like that, you know, sequence. What are you attempting to do? And so anyway, I hope this is helpful, Francesca. Okay. So let me see. So yeah, so then here other information. Well, these are good examples where you want to co-lead, you know, a workshop or do something with someone else, and then there's something pending or tentative, and I believe there should be some sort of deadline for clarifying this kind of, you know, comments. So anyway, so that's let me see. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for now, and okay. So now talking about when we have a lot of topics, not a lot of topics, but a lot of submissions on one particular topic. So here it is something. So we do have a rubric, and this rubric talks about how, let me see, how the topic or like the submission is consistent with the principles of contextual behavior science. Okay. There is an article that I am going to find, and I'm going to share with you, Jacob, so then you can share with the rest of the group. That is about contextual behavior science. I find it very, very comprehensive and very, very useful to get to know to what extent what I'm doing really is adhering to these ideas or assumptions. Okay. So, okay, so that's one thing we look at. Okay, and another thing, and again, some of the like philosophical assumptions are looked at. In most topics, that is not included, like in the abstract, because of course, yeah, we know the, you know, the limit, the restriction for that. But for instance, if I'm just, and this is probably not the best example, but I can't think of anything else. So if you say, okay, a 2-hour Zoom protocol to decrease sadness, for instance, right? I will start to think, why do you want to decrease sadness? What do you want to increase instead? Right? We know that we want to create or like response variability, right? In the presence of what hurts. So let's have that be the focus instead of focusing on something that as a community we are not overly concerned, because that is probably what other therapies or, you know, from other assumptions or philosophical or theoretical assumptions do. So is this making sense? Okay. All right. So again, in the abstract, it's also hard to grasp everything, right? So it's difficult to manage this rubric, but again, it is included, for instance, like, okay, well, again, the relevance to contextual behavior science principles, the novelty right? If we have this, like the same topic, like 15 submissions or 50 submissions of the same topic, I am going to be drawn to the one that is most consistent with CBS principles, the one that has more novelty, even if it is a slightly little shift, right? I'll be okay, nobody has paid attention to this. This is important, right? Instead of doing the same. Now, just as for everybody, as for ourselves, it's hard to keep track or to keep up with what has been submitted in the past. Well, we have the program from the previous conference, right, which is accessible at ACBS. So that can be helpful too in knowing, okay, well, this has already been discussed or touched on, but it didn't have much of an impact. So we might do a small change here, or something that is going to really broaden or contribute in that sense. Let me see. Another thing is something that also happens is that if we have a lot of submissions on one particular topic, and that same topic was given the previous conference and there was very low attendance, then we also take that into account and we say, you know, it's not, if we were to do it again, we are very likely to have low attendance again, right? So we kind of go back to what happened in the previous conference as well. Let me see what else. I don't know if this will be, I think this will be, you know, useful. Like we were talking about the abstract, right? So again, we talk about the problem or what the difficulty or the concern is and how you want to go about it. Whether it's by intervening or whether it's by, well, intervening is also increasing awareness or any of these things. So, but you need to make sure that you are being specific on what is the variable, right? What is the thing that you intend to use to generate change? Okay. So if you are going to talk about minestrone soup, then, well, you need to say, I'm going to use my hands, my stove, and my pot, and my wooden spoon to mix all the ingredients together to hopefully deliver the best minestrone soup ever, right? There is a question. You know, Jennifer, this is a good question. So she is asking, do ACBS conferences have themes? If so, what is the 2022 theme? Some other conferences have themes each year that people write to. I don't think there is a theme. I don't think so. I don't think there has been, and I might be mistaken, but I have not, at least I have not seen it as clear as this is a particular theme. What I have seen is what Jacob talked about at the beginning, which is whatever is happening in the world, there is somehow an interest in, you know, moving towards that, right? And so there's topics developed around that particular problem we're all facing. But yeah, so that's about it. Let me see. So, okay, so I think, well, I am happy to answer more questions, but what I can do is to summarize, I'm going to send you, Jacob, the chapter, right, on contextual behavior science. I am going to ask the committee about these two aspects of the form that were challenging, I guess, and not very clear. And I will write an email to you with the answers, and so you can share with the group.
Thank you.
Of course, of course. So I don't know if you have any other questions or how else I can be helpful.
Yeah, we have a thank you. I have a question. Is there at least like a rough kind of like a breakdown of the ratios when it comes to types of submissions submitted? Like not every submission can be a workshop, or not every submission accepted can be a workshop, rather, right? Do you have a kind of a breakdown of how many types of submissions are accepted each year?
I don't have that information, but I can find out and let you know about it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, I don't, you know, my role in the past has been just reviewing blindly, right? And that's it. But I don't know how many are submitted or something that also, I don't know if this is helpful, but maybe we can also look at the program from the previous conference, like besides me asking about those numbers, right? And we can also sort of find out if like how many approximately are, right?
Mhm.
There is like a summary version of the program from last year.
That's
That's
good.
really
Good idea. Yeah, we'll take a look at that. I
I
also want.
have it handy. I can send to you if you want.
Sure. Yeah, I know they're also on the website too. I guess one last question too is I know sometimes they, at least informally, sort of break down the conference into tracks. Like there's an RFT track or a FAP track, where you know if you're interested in these topics, you can just kind of look at these presentations. Is that something that y'all are doing on your end, the conference planning committee or the program committee, of kind of sorting things into these tracks?
I believe so. Sometimes like I believe so. And I'm trying to think of something. I know that in the past, in the previous conference, there were the tracks as well, and but also by language, right? So it was, well, the Spanish, like, and I think in Spanish, for instance, it was there were not those categories. It was just all like, okay, the ones that were going to be translated or in Spanish, etc. So but I think so. I think it's gonna be the same.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
It's no, of course, of course. Well, I can see here in the chat that it was helpful, so I am glad. I am glad that it was helpful, and feel free to reach out if you have any other questions or something. And I don't know all the answers. So many, like I'm just new navigating this. And but anyway, I am here to be helpful to you and yeah, make it as smooth as possible.
Well, we appreciate it. And I'll pass on any additional feedback that we might have to you. And I'll send those articles that you send me to everybody who attended today, and the recording
Yes.
out to people who signed up but could not attend in person. I really appreciate your time, Dr. Cannon. I know you're very busy, and I look forward to connecting with you in a future conference, hopefully in person at some point.
Yes, of course. And yes, and we are all busy, not just me. We are all going like in circles, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so thank you also you for, you know, putting this together. So then, yeah, so then people can start working on their submissions and be okay.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay, well, why don't we leave it there for today? Submissions are due sometime around March, probably, right? Or February, end of February.
February the 25th, I believe.
Okay, end of February.
Oh no, I think the 15th. I think the 15th.
Mid-February presentations, submissions are due. And then of course, for the pre-conference, that's December 3rd or December 6th or something like that, right? Really soon. So that one probably too late for that one. But I
think
do
it's
encourage
actually
people.
December the 1st, so that's like
Couple
the day
days.
for the pre-conference workshop. Yes.
Yeah, I encourage everybody who attended here today to try to submit something, just to at least get some practice at it. And well, the worst can happen is you get rejected, and you can always try again.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much. Why don't we wrap up here? Everybody, I will be in touch with you via email.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.